The Padres Hot Tub is a podcast, but it's also a community, and it is presented, and it is built, and it is supported and sustained and funded by patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Our great patrons who support us monthly at patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub for as little as $5, for even more. There's higher tiers, but you get an opportunity to get ad-free shows, to get all of our bonus programming, like banter, like have a drink, to gain access to our live group therapy shows, which are patron only for the 2025 season. And guys, it's fantasy time, and no one does baseball fantasy quite like Padres Hot Tub. In fact, it is to a ludicrously large level now.
Yes, we have a full promotion and relegation structure. If you're familiar with the soccer systems of many European countries, how many tiers are we up to now?
Yeah, that's the thing. We're not like Luxembourg or one of the small countries. We're like the United Kingdom, where there's like 8 different levels that you can get involved at.
I know our ultimate commissioner, Monty, is trying to create the biggest fantasy league in the world and have Guinness Book of World Records recognize it as such. I don't know that we're there yet, but it is a pretty intense promotion relegation situation. Plus, we have a legacy league, a keeper league. We've got a second legacy league coming in as well. We do NBA fantasy, NFL, NHL, Survivor. Every season since 41, we've done Survivor fantasy. So you can check all of that out. It goes through our Discord. Discord's a lot of fun. It's so much better than so many of the other social media sites. Let's just put it that way. Almost all of them at this point. So check it out for yourself. Find out for yourself. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Welcome to the Padres Hot Tub, everybody. My name's Craig Elston, Chris Reed, Raphie Cantor, together recording on, well, we're not together. We're in 3 separate rooms, but we're recording together on Monday, January 27th. Jurickson Profar is no longer a Padre. Pour one out. Chris just did, I think, onto his pants.
right on my crotch. Yep.
It feels eerily appropriate.
Yep.
In some cold and discomforting way. Yeah, we're just going to have an amazing, amazing show filled with good news today. Hopefully we won't make it very long. At the very least, we can do you that favor. But guys, I don't know where you want to begin. There's a lot to unpack with Kevin Acee's reporting about, getting email answers back from Sheila Seidler, doing a lot of digging to try and corroborate some of her claims, or maybe fail to corroborate some of her claims. But personally, I kind of want to start on a more baseball salient and baseball important / emotional note, which is Jurickson Profar is an Atlanta Brave. And I'd like for us all to acknowledge the journey that we have taken. Because it was around this time last year that Jurickson Profar became a San Diego Padre again on a 1-year, $1 million deal that was laughed at in some corners, reviled in others, scoffed at, begrudgingly accepted, I think would be a level that folks got to, that Jurickson Profar would be the starting left fielder of the Padres. So, I want to acknowledge that before I say how upset I am that the Padres didn't spend $40 million to keep Jurickson Profar for the next 3 years and keep him in San Diego, and that he is now an Atlanta Brave. I think this, of all the things that's happened in this horrible, just shutout streak continues offseason, I feel like we got shut out 24 straight innings and have never scored since. Yeah. Just not even 1 point on the board the entire winter. Nothing but bad news, nothing but taking L's. But of all the players that have left previously, whether it's Higashioka, okay, career year, 36, going 37, like, do we really need him? Solano, great player, miss him, not happy, but, bench bat, like, let's be real. Like, it's not the biggest. Tanner Scott, he was never coming back. Tanner Scott was never coming back. Rookie, can't get mad. He was never here. Can't be mad about what you lost. It was never there. But Jurickson was here. Jurickson was a Padre. Jurickson is, in fact, one of the most identifiable Padres of the 2020s so far in terms of importance to the club, in terms of being a leader, a connector, more than a superstar. We found out in 2023 very, very clearly that the Padres had plenty of superstars, but they didn't have the connecting players that could make the team whole and make the team good. And Jurickson Profar is a connector. He's somebody who links Tatis to Machado. He's somebody who links Machado to Musgrove and all through the clubhouse. In addition to that, he put up a .380 on base percentage for a full year, 24 homers, 85 RBI, led the team in runs scored. Didn't have stats that indicated that his gains made were fluky and sure to fall apart, like so many other players, like Cody Bellinger just a year before. And I think for this franchise, in this position, with this sellout, crowd situation, highest season tickets ever, the fact that they can't spend $40 million, 14 average annual value and I know he signed 42 with the Braves. I guarantee you he would have signed for 38 here or 39 or 40. But the fact that, so I just say 40, the fact that they couldn't find $40 million to keep a guy that matters as much as Jurickson matters. This to me is the first card actually turned over that's a deuce of clubs that says, hey, we're not even, we can't even do this. We can't do anything. And that's what it feels like seeing Jurickson leave and on the way out on his Zoom call say, well, ownership situation, it's pretty hard to be there right now. That was a real gut punch to me, guys. It was a real gut punch.
Rafe, you guys did the great PAR on this. You want to take it?
Yeah. Well, I'm wearing my Mr. Relevant shirt in honor of our dearly departed Jurickson Profar. Just coming at it from the sabermetric side of things, one of the things that John and I talked about was that exit velocity, hard hit percentage, it's one of the stickier stats in baseball. We're constantly looking for these things that we can use to project future performance. And obviously, Jurickson Profar, someone who has been incredibly unpredictable in terms of future performance. Some years he's a 2 to 3 WAR player. Some years he's quite literally the worst qualified hitter in baseball. What do you do with that? How do you pay someone like that? How do you project future performance? Well, the good news for Jurickson and for the Braves, frankly, is that one of the stickier stats in baseball, meaning something that carries over year, is exit velocity. Max exit velocity, 95th percentile exit velocity. I mean, StatCast now is able to break things down to like EV90, so like what your 90th is, 75th, etc. And Jurickson, for his entire career, was someone who did not hit the ball hard. In fact, up until last year, he was never higher than the bottom 25% of the league in exit velo, which was part of the reason why his performances were so variant. Because if you're not hitting the ball hard, you're relying a lot more on the ball landing in the right spot. You're relying a lot more on BABIP being scrappy and having good plate discipline, which is something that Jurickson Profar generally does have, but it's not always there. All of a sudden in 2024, Jurickson was like, cool, I'm going to hit the ball really hard a lot. So 2022, that was Jurickson's best season as a Padre. He had a hard hit percentage of 34.3%. That was his highest of any of his qualified seasons at the plate. Last year, that number climbed all the way up to 44.4%. He absolutely crushed the ball last year. And the Braves basically think that that's something that's going to stick. Part of the reason he crushed the ball was that he had a new leg kick last year. That was part of a new revitalized swing. I have no doubt that the Braves, very good ball club, will be able to maintain that, perhaps even grow on it. Jurickson is going to be playing in a hotter and more humid place. So that ball is absolutely going to fly in the summer months. And, this is kind of a little bit of the pandering stuff that I'm sure came about in the press conference. But look, Jurickson Profar is from Curacao. Probably the greatest player ever from Curacao. Andrew Jones was on the Braves. The Braves, I saw in the Fangraphs article about his signing, something like 60% of the WAR generated from players born in Curacao has been generated on the Braves. Like that because
Wow.
it's obviously not just Andrew Jones. It's Ozzy Albies. It's Kenley Jansen, who did some time with them. Andrelton Simmons. So there are a lot of good players from Curacao who then went and played for Atlanta. So I'm happy for Jurickson in that respect. I'm with you, Craig. This is the card turning over. It's really rare to have a player so verbally say in free agency, I want to come back here. I love it here. It's great. I like the guys. It's awesome. And the reporting that we have since gotten is that the Padres did not make a serious offer to Jurickson Profar.
Right.
So it's not even
tried.
like,
didn't even try.
Hey, yeah.
So-
Because you go ahead, Chris. I'm just rambling.
No, like you said, you guys changed my opinion on Jurickson. Frankly, Raphie, I had kind of been leaning toward, on a team that's tight with resources that is going to have to sell some stock to buy some options and other players, that he was going to be too expensive for the Padres. And that seemed like that was just how it's going to be. He had a career year, was going to get paid and deserved to get paid. But with the underlying exit velocity data you guys go over, it was very convincing. And then with the straight vibes approach, Tatis Jr. doesn't have a better friend on the team than Jurickson Profar. They've been training together in the DR this offseason, just like they did last offseason when he discovered the swing. So there was a lot going for it, and I wanted to see it happen. And the thing that we were resigned to has come to pass. And it's not because of rockiness in the ownership. I've heard it said that players aren't signing because of the Padres, aren't signing with the Padres because of the ownership thing, and Seidler specifically. And it's not. It's because the Padres didn't pay him $42 million. He went elsewhere because elsewhere gave him what he was worth. And Craig, like you said, if it's a $38 million the offer the Padres make, he's probably wearing the cap today. And they couldn't do it, and it sucks. And, I don't think Jurickson's going to be headed for another season like he had this past year. I think there was a little bit of magic and pixie dust and timing. Peak of his athletic abilities has already passed. But there's reason to believe he can be a productive guy for 3 years. It's not that long of a deal. We've signed so many people to way longer deals that, it's a shame. You wonder what world, they could have made this happen in. And, yeah.
Well, they're doing nothing. The
Nothing.
Padres have done nothing. They've been shut out for 100 straight innings or 100 straight days or whatever it is.
And that's why the fan base is in such rough shape right now, Craig, because they haven't done anything. It's been 24 innings, the trauma of that, and then absolutely no progress. And that's why we see fans acting completely insane and doxing people on social media.
I'm sorry to hear that is happening.
You haven't heard about that? Don't do that, people, by the way. That's stupid, just dumb behavior.
Hey, you know what? I dropped my Twitter account, and I haven't really missed it, but every once in a while someone's like, hey, did you hear about the important thing? And I'm like, oh, no. And then it turns out it wasn't important most of the time, but that is the cesspool where many, many bad things emerge, and negative stuff. And doxing is not a surprise to me. And overly passionate or overly negative or overly everything, is not a surprise as well. The Padres haven't given their fans anything to hold on to through this. It's been a free fall all the way. Shutout in game 4, shutout in game 5, no answers afterwards, no changes whatsoever. Everybody leaving. The key player of the entire offseason doesn't go to us, he goes to LA. No moves whatsoever. Rumors of further constriction of payroll. First player taken to arbitration in the history of the AJ Preller baseball operations regime. And now, I think it's just becoming crystal clear what's going on, which is the Padres organization is paralyzed by an ownership dispute, which is going to continue to cast a pall over the club until it's resolved. And that resolution, gang, ain't coming this year.
No.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't coming. If it comes at all, it would be at the end. So I'm not saying like I'm throwing the season out. I don't think the Padres are going to win the World's Championship this year. So,
Craig, this
I
is
don't.
a stupid sport, as we've said many times.
It is. It's very stupid. So they could do the dumbest thing ever and just win it. But, I mean, like, it's, it's kind of hard to see that right now today when the club can't keep a Jurickson Profar, when the club can't make one move, when it can't keep Higgy, can't keep Solano, can't keep Profar. These are easy plays. These are level 1 plays in the game. Keep the cool guys who made your team good, and we don't have either the wherewithal, or I would say you maybe have the wherewithal, but you have a prevailing distraction that is going to, until proven otherwise, make it difficult on AJ to do anything other than like it is with my closet at home, one piece in, one piece out. Oh, you want a new shirt? You got to get rid of an old shirt. That's kind of where it looks like we are right now with the Padres. And maybe that's a transition into what was written today. Talked about it a lot on the radio today as well. But, Kevin Acee put out, it's got to be like close to a 15,000 word piece. But the crux of it is to try and put a little more depth of reporting into the allegations within Sheila Seidler's probate court lawsuit in the state of Texas and the response of the Padres organization to those claims. And I would say, I'm sure you guys have read through this and looked at it. I looked at it this morning, like I said, talked about it a lot. My walk away from this is pretty darn similar, unfortunately, to where I was before, which is it feels like there was a hearts and minds play that was made by Sheila Seidler at a moment when she realized that she had nothing legal in her favor in terms of trying to get what she wants. And so she has gone the other route, which is go the court of public opinion and trying to leverage public opinion to force the folks that are in control to either make a change or to probably her ideal outcome is sell the franchise and cash out on the other end. It's unfortunate because all of it is being couched on both sides with language involving furthering a legacy and preparing for a championship and all of this. And I don't see it on either side. I see a play for hearts and minds by Sheila that has apparently almost stunningly little merit. And on the other side, I feel like it's a very cold
I'm begging them for a push for hearts and minds. Just a little tiny bit of a push for it.
Yeah, it feels like kind of the opposite. Just like a robot responding or AI responding saying this claim is without merit, but you are part of the family. You know, it's like, honestly, it's I don't know. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say, but it's just kind of a bummer situation in my mind. I don't know who's going to win. I don't know who's right. I just know it's going to take a while and it's probably going to hurt the club while it happens.
I think you're right in that. And I think history tells you the same thing when you look at how families fighting over teams have gone for the teams. Peter Seidler, this article talked about how there was not a clear control person left in any of the instructions following Peter Seidler's death. That's kind of an insane takeaway for me. But the guy did talk about speaking from the grave. I just didn't think it would be in only the form of really long-term contracts locking up talent in 2023, but you said it, man. Like, Sheila was around a lot this year, like both at the games and also on Padres social media. Like it felt like she was making her presence known in a way that was really refreshing and great, because one of Peter Seidler's outstanding qualities that is incredibly rare amongst the ranks of Major League Baseball control persons and owners is that he talked with fans. Literally, like at baseball games in the community. He got out in front of cameras and talked about what the club's intentions were. And in a day and age where we have access to lots of information all the time, you can hear anybody you want talk about the baseball team from whatever proximity of involvement to the actual organization you want. But Peter Seidler was out there doing it. And to have the complete opposite since then, I don't think has helped anything at all. I think Eric Kutsendo was in a really tough spot. And I actually went back and watched the celebration of life this past week just to kind of like remember where we were a year ago in all this, because the timeline, and I'm heartened by the fact nobody wants to win a championship more than AJ Preller. That's kind of where I come back into all this, because there's so much we can't know. The unknown unknowns are profound, and getting into where we're going to be in 3 or 4 years as Padres fans and who owns the team, there's no use in that. That's worrying about stuff that we're not going to know anything about. So, like, I read the article and I think it was really well researched. I think a lot of stuff I had heard from my deep sources kind of corresponded to it, that neither of these people, Sheila or the brothers, were at Padres games much prior to last season. They talk about John being at a couple dozen and Sheila being around, she said, because she was enjoying reminiscing about Peter. That's not exact quote, but she talked about how it was very healing to talk with fans at games.
Yeah.
But like neither of these folks had been around prior. So it's very tough to root for one side or the other. I root for Sheila and her children to be looked after. I hope all that stuff gets resolved. But at the end of the day, I want this team to be in a strong position, to not have the nonsense be part of the conversation. And it's going to be for a long time.
Yeah. I think that, I largely agree with a lot of you guys saying. It's a really interesting read. You can kind of, through the tea leaves of reading the article, guess where some of these sources are that are coming from. I think there were like a few things that stuck out to me. One was that, there were multiple sources within the Padres organization who were willing to say on background that they are too scared to talk about this because they have been openly told that they are not, or there's been no written communication that they aren't to talk about it, but there has been verbal communication that this is business as usual. We are not discussing the lawsuit, anything like that. That's not great. Because then you have this fear mentality that's built into it. But also, in terms of the particulars of the lawsuit, and I mean, it should be very evident from the way that we talk and act and look, frankly, that none of us are lawyers. And so anything that we say are, take with a massive grain of salt. But looking at this, if you are on Team Sheila, whatever that means, I think it requires you to accept two things as true. One is that Peter Seidler, who I think pretty much everyone in this conversation, especially people who are like on Sheila's side, are people who are very pro Peter Seidler, people who love Peter Seidler and his legacy. You're accepting that this person, who you undoubtedly see as an incredible business person, has incredible business acumen, also just didn't really think to put together a will and trust that was clear. Someone who was also actively being confronted with his mortality on a regular basis, like just kind of whatever did. So that's something you have to accept as true if you are, on Team Sheila or whatever. And the second thing you have to believe, which is frankly much more possible, but also we don't know, is that Peter Seidler's brothers are actively engaged in malicious intent, willful malicious intent towards Sheila, and it's not just like, oh, she's not invited to the owner's suite. It's like there's an allegation that like they're not carrying out what Peter's will and trust dictates and like what he wanted. So there's one thing about like being cordial and like whatever, but there's actual like the allegations are like, hey, you're unlawfully screwing me out of things, and so you have to believe that both of those people are true, or both of those aspects are true. And I'm just not there. And based on the reporting, I don't buy that. And in some ways, it kind of got me thinking about, have you guys seen the movie The Social Network about Facebook?
Mm-mm. No.
Oh, Christopher.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know about, oh, wow. That is in terms of top 10 movies of the 2010s decade, it is number one for me. Absolutely number one. Wow. It is the movie that has very brief diatribe. It's one of the few movies that has seriously gotten better with age. You watch it now, and it's even more impactful and more meaningful than when it came out in ways that they could have never foreseen. Anyway,
homework assignment taken.
So Christopher, you're to watch that. Craig, Sheila kind of reminds me of the Eduardo Saverin character played by Andrew Garfield, who in the story of Facebook, Eduardo Saverin went to college with Mark Zuckerberg. He put up the initial $18,000 investment in Facebook. And then he kind of went off to pursue other career prospects, only to come back after a summer and find out that Facebook had massively grown and that Mark Zuckerberg was now being influenced by Sean Parker and some of these other, Peter Thiel and some of these other business people, etc. And Eduardo Saverin's shares are massively diluted in a actively malicious, sort of thing.
I have seen the scene, actually.
Yes.
I've seen the scene.
The lawyer up motherfucker.
Yep.
Like that scene. And to me, I think that it's kind of the argument that that Sheila is making from like that perspective of like, I whether or not it was an initial investment, there is a certain amount of love and sweat that me and Peter put into this thing together, and now these people are coming and taking and I just don't know. And also at the end of the day, Eduardo Saverin, all he got, he got a lot of Facebook shares, don't get me wrong, but he got like the masthead updated. But now, Mark Zuckerberg's out and hanging out with Joe Rogan and having this little midlife crisis thing. And he still can and is now worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. So, if that comparison holds, it's not going to work out, So, please.
Well, I especially going through some of the Q&A that Kevin did, where Kevin Acee sent emails to
really good on the Union Tribune for publishing that, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. It's in there that the details continue to fail to support Sheila's case and leaves me in a spot where either she was really dealt the worst possible hand, where all of her proof can't be proven, Or the other side, which I think is a slightly more logical side, is she knows she's never had a case and she's been making an emotional appeal, knowing that in doing that, she's making some bad faith arguments along the way. One of which is that she was the intimate conciliary for key baseball operations moves over the last several years, that she was at owners' meetings, that she was in the room, with AJ and with Pedro and making the big calls. She was on the phone with agents. She was right in the mix. She was right in the mix. And then she got yanked out of the mix by the Seidlers. And what Kevin Acee really set out to do, in my opinion, is to verify that.
Yeah.
I think he was running into the gulch with the banner of Sheila and running in, looking, show me one soldier that can come to my banner. Show me somebody who will come to my banner and say, yes, Sheila was there. She was in the meeting. She was there. She was at the owners' meetings. She was there. She was talking to the agents. She was talking to Peter. I was in a meeting and Peter said one thing and then Sheila said something else and the whole meeting turned, like anything. And what we get instead in an email exchange from Sheila is, well, I was at the owners' meetings, but I was in the room. And then Peter would get out of the meeting and then we'd go for a walk. And it was on that walk that he would confide everything into me. And then I would tell him and we would work on it and we would come to a decision together. It was over coffee. It was, sitting on a park bench. And that could be true. That absolutely could be true. But no one's there to document that meeting. No minutes are being taken in any of those meetings. There's nothing provable about any of that. It's just say so. And say so goes nowhere in probate court. You know what goes really far? Written instructions, which the Seidlers say are there in black and white, signed by Peter Seidler, pushing the trust in the direction it's going and not towards Sheila. And the handwritten note that says Pedro, 11-year-old starting pitcher on the top, to say that means anything, to me, that's almost kind of damning. Like if you're showing that as evidence, it tells me what little evidence you have.
I get whimsical about it, man. I wonder if all this started just from finding that piece of paper as part of the cleaning out process. The one bit of involvement that was corroborated and reported on in this piece that Sheila Seidler did help in recruiting was Manny Machado. Right. And I can't help but wonder if a direct question were asked, did you influence Peter Seidler's decision to extend Manny Machado, which I've heard from really good sources was a decision made above AJ Preller. That was an ownership decision. That was a Manny going to Peter, them working things out. So I do wonder, if asked directly, if Sheila had a hand in that particular contract.
Yeah, which also
go ahead.
Maybe just really quickly wouldn't be points in her favor.
No.
So
it would be making an emotional decision, right? When I said the Manny contract was good, I was going from the emotions that will come with seeing him wear the San Diego cap in the Hall of Fame. It's not, and assuming that they would be putting money to help him and his boys play.
If you're looking for the $40 million to sign Jurickson Profar, they're going to Manny Machado in 2031. So
I know. Well, speaking of millions of dollars and somewhat close to that, it wasn't in the main story. It was actually an italicized sidebar within the email Q&A.
Yeah.
But I thought it was one of the most important pieces of reporting out of the entire thing that Kevin did. He had 3 different sources to say that to give more clarity to the loan in 2023. Spelled out in the starkest terms I've seen yet, to say straight up and clearly, the Padres were $100 million in the red. that in the middle of 2023, in the middle of the most expensive payroll, most disappointing season in Padres history, that no, they didn't have a billionaire's endless, magical puffy trough cloud of zillions to funnel it. No, they were way, way in debt halfway through 2023. And that they asked Major League Baseball for to approve a $100 million loan to cover the $100 million that they were in debt. Baseball only approved $50 million. All of that has been, reported for 2 years. But the part that I hadn't heard before was the other $50 million was covered by the trust. That the Seidler trust put up the other 50. And Sheila wants that money. And this is one of the things that's in the suit, is that they have mismanaged the fund. And I think that's really important for Padre fans to understand, because one of the things that Sheila is leaning on is the memory of Peter and her claim that she and only she would truly fulfill his legacy of spending on the team, of short-term and long-term spending on the team. But one of her probably strongest actual legal claims is that, hey, that $50 million that the trust repaid the Padres that they needed to stay afloat in 2023, that money shouldn't have gone to the Padres. It should have gone to me as the primary beneficiary of the trust. That's a misuse of the trust money. That's my money that you put in. And I think that's the kind of thing, is like, hey, if I'm in control, okay. But if I'm not in control, that money should have been mine. And I just find that to be really interesting, and it's not damning in any way. It's very interesting to me that there's a pursuit of cash here in addition to all the pursuit of power. And in this moment in 2023, I think it's also very illustrative of how over the skis financially the Padres were in that crazy, like, cocaine Camelot time of, we can sign anyone. We can sign Judge. We can sign Turner. Bogarts, we'll sign them all. We'll give Matt Carpenter $12 million. We'll just do it all. And it didn't work. They've made the most money the Padres have ever made, and they were still $100 million in debt halfway through that season. That's pretty wild to me. I think that's pretty important.
Yeah. And for I know we brought it up previously on this, but folks will recall that a similar situation was unfolding with the erstwhile San Diego, now Los Angeles Chargers, where Dina Spanos was filed litigation in April of 2021, basically saying that, under shaky legal ground, that the Spanos family was supposed to sell the team, and they didn't. And she basically created a situation in which now, I believe his name is Tom Gores, who's the Pistons governor in the NBA, happened to purchase 27% stake of the Chargers, a very clean amount that just so happens to link up to Dina's stake in the team. And that transaction occurred in October of 2024. So after an April 2021 lawsuit was filed, the Gores transaction took place 3.5 years later. So to your point, Craig, of this ain't wrapping up anytime soon. Certainly not in 2025.
And Craig, Kevin Acee also said on local radio today that in addition to that $100 million they needed, that they got the loan from baseball and then the trust from, they also had $100 million cash call with other ownership. So it's a team pulling out all the stops to pay the bills. And it makes a lot of sense why they had to get $100 million off their payroll last year.
Yeah. And why they've been paralyzed all season and they haven't done a damn thing. And that the entirety of our off season is Tyler Wade, Martin Maldonado, and Ron Marinaccio, who every
Nico
time I say his
Goodrum
name, I get a little more excited.
erasure.
The Marinaccio erasure is real. Who
No,
did I
Nico
erase?
Goodrum. Nico
Oh,
Goodrum.
How about J.G.
Goodrum.
Wentworth? 1-800-SAVE-NOW. We signed him too.
We got Mason McCoy back.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. The Padres have nobody in left field. They used to have Jurickson Profar, and now they have an empty hole. Before I panic over that, speaking of 2023, the most expensive Padres team in history, opening weekend 2023, the right fielder to start was Rougned Odor. Okay?
We knew.
So we've been
knew.
bad before. We've done dumb things with lots of money.
And
So
I just want to give a shout out to Ben Clemens on Fangraphs. He wrote a couple of things this week that Padres fans should go look at. It has to do with the free agent market and how successful and how much money free agents make the longer they stay in the market. And the Padres are going to be playing at the end of it. And while that worked out incredibly well for them last year, as you'll read with Ben Clemens over at fangraphs.com, it does not always go well. And we saw that firsthand. Rougned Odor, never forget.
yeah. When you play in the bargain bin, every once in a while you find a great deal. And a lot of times you find some broken ass shit that doesn't work. And that's life in the bargain bin. That's how it works when you spend your life in the bargain bin. The Padres can still be a good team this year. They have 2/3 to 3/4 of a good team already. They've got something that you said last show, Raphie, has just bing, 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 bing in my head. It's never stopped being in there. It's an electron just bouncing back and forth, which is, what do you think about them contracts now? What do you think about them contracts now? How much worse from a fan standpoint would it be if a new ownership group could come in and just go chop, chop, trade, trade, save, move, move, move? But you literally can't do it. You can't move Manny. You can't move Xander. It's impossible. You can't move you. It's hard to move Jake. Most of the players on this team are hard to move or have no trade clauses. Like, the team's in place. And because the team's in place, that means almost whether they like it or not, they're going to contend the rest of the decade. It kind of forces them away from any fire sale. It precludes any tear down to the studs activity. And as such, it kind of forces them, whether they want to or not, to try and win it for Pete, and to try and put a banner up. And I'm not sure that the heart is there anymore, but I'm not sure that when the heart was there, that the mind was always in the right place as well, because the team got into a really negative financial position while acting like everything was great. So, my bottom line is the team turned over a card with Profar leaving. This dispute doesn't make anything better. Sasaki talking about ownership, Profar talking about ownership. When players are talking about it, it brings us back to one of our famous lifelong truths, which is perception is reality. And it's never been more true in modern time than it is in modern times with social media and with just, perception creating devices, as opposed to places of common truth that are reached, in the human condition. So perception is reality now. And if the player's perception is that there's a problem, then it's hard for this team to do anything besides counting on the stupidity of baseball to give them a path, a pathway to success. And I would love for us to have something else and for them to show us something. Make a trade. Don't just trade for Christian Vasquez. Don't trade Dylan Cease for Christian Vasquez. Okay. But
Stop. That's some Sports Illustrated aggregator AI nonsense right there.
It was athletic too. It was a very weird Dan Hayes, Dennis Lin collab that didn't really sing for me. Two guys I really like, but it didn't really sing for me. Maybe Trevor Larnach's going to be our starting left fielder next year or this season. And who knows? But kind of tying the show in a bow, like, how are we better in that circumstance? Like, okay, he's younger, he's cheaper, he's left-handed, he's got power, he's, statistical darling, but he ain't Profar. Like, I'd love to see this club do something. Okay, maybe here's the last thing we got to talk about. Ken Rosenthal today put in, paragraph 19 of one of his, thrice weekly columns that the Padres are looking to move a contract. And he named all the guys we've talked about since literally the season was over. Dylan Cease, Luis Arraez. But he also tossed Michael King in there. And that led to MLB Trade Rumors writing a 17-paragraph story. Padres interested in trading Michael King.
That's not the central source that I got. Central source on I got that Michael King's name first got mentioned at a local meeting for baseball researchers, the Saber people. Josh Stein name dropped Michael King as a guy the team was shopping. And that was the pebble in the pond, so to speak, on Michael King trade rumors.
I don't think they're trading Michael King. I think other teams are interested in Michael King.
Would you prefer they trade Dylan Cease?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What about you,
I
Rafe?
would like them to extend Michael King.
I think Raphie has the smile of a regular season boy.
I have the smile of walking with Craig to Bottle Rocket after the NLDS Game 4, and him, like, I swear to God, he wasn't chain smoking, but he should have been chain smoking, saying, they're never going to fucking win with Dylan Cease in the playoffs. They're never going to win with Dylan Cease in the playoffs. It's not going to happen. They need to trade him. They need to trade him right now.
Nothing's changed.
I'm only slightly paraphrasing.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
I'm still right there. Send him and his lovely bee honey and his frisbee golf and everything to another team for that year. Let's collect those sweet, sweet resources that we can in this unbalanced CBA situation. And he can enjoy free agency next year. He's never going to sign here. In 7 billion universes, Dylan Cease doesn't sign here. He signs somewhere else in all 7 billion universes. So let's get the things we can get to get this damn season started. Something's got to go in order for us to turn the key on 2025. And if it's Dylan, hey, thank you for the great year. Thank you for the no-hitter, second in Padres history. Thank you for the 200-plus strikeouts and the 190 innings. Man, you posted up for the club. And by the way, if he's still here, I'm looking forward to all those things and maybe even a little bit more in a career contract year if he sticks around. But I still think he's the single most valuable thing on the roster that will get the most, that costs the most, $14 million, and that is never, ever going to give you anything beyond 2025. So you might as well cash out now before the stock evaporates to zero.
To Dream World, I'm with you. And Michael King could sign a 1-year deal and then have an extension signed a month later that begins next year when we have an extra $15 million they don't have. Like that's my ideal scenario. And I have absolutely ridiculed the people in the Discord who have been like, no, you got to trade them both. Trade all the free agents. Trade all the things that aren't bolted down to the deck of the ship because we have the future to worry about. And you know me, I don't love prospects. I don't love the scratcher version of that. But on the flip side, Michael King at $6 million, $7 million for a team that's under the Steve Cohen tax and has to pay twice as much for every single person they take on. That could be a valuable piece, Craig.
So my feeling is that we know what the Padres' limitations are. Money. And we're recording this on January 27th. It's not like the Padres front office, whoever the fuck is in charge, is going to wake up on February 1st and be like, oh, we can spend money. Oh, of course. Let's just start writing checks. No, they're not. So in my mind, that means of the two pitchers, you trade the more expensive one. And that's Dylan Cease. Michael
Bingo.
King is going to be making what, like $8 million next year, even if he wins
Yeah.
arbitration?
Yeah,
Right.
that's at worst.
Yeah. And Cease is going to be making 14, 15.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 14, yeah.
These are the margins we're playing in now. I don't like
Right.
it. It's not my favorite. But that would bring us back under the CBT with some room to spare. And that really matters for the Padres. It really matters. They cannot go over the CBT. It just is not possible at this point. If they're, look, we said our big offseason acquisition are expensive lawyers. So that's number one. Number two, the Padres, according to the reporting we've already talked about today, needed $100 million in the red. And if you go over the CBT by $1, you don't get revenue sharing. It doesn't happen. So they,
Or it compromises
have
it.
to-
There's formulas.
Yeah,
and shit.
it gets sticky.
Yeah.
But I want to say this about revenue sharing real quick, just on the topic, just to get Padres fans more angry.
Fine.
Never mind. I'm not going to get people.
No, you already did it. I want to get mad
now. Come on.
Okay. So the Padres are payers into revenue sharing because they filled their stadium up. They had a successful product. Major League Baseball CBA ensures that isn't a potential liability for big market clubs. Dodgers, if they fill their stadium, they're never going to get to be revenue sharing payees because they're a big market. So the Padres get penalized for being successful. Like, that small market money should just be there. There shouldn't be caveats of, well, if you spend too much, if you get too much of a response from your fans, then you don't get that money. Success somehow makes that money get forfeited, and it's a broken system when the A's are getting full shares, the Pirates are getting full shares, the Twins are getting full shares. But the Padres, because our fans are turning out because they invested in the team, don't get that. So there's my little piss off, everybody.
Well, no, I agree with you. The system's
Hand
broken,
grenade.
and I
Yeah.
mean the system is broken, and it's so broken that there's kind of this desperation in the national writing class to pretend like it's not, because they know what's coming 2 years from now if they admit the truth. And so they want to get everybody to just not think that what's true is true, because that's the only path they have to avoid labor strife in 2027. Labor strife is coming in 2027. I don't know that we'll play a season that year. I'm thinking we won't. I hope we do. Certainly for this podcast's sake, because it's gonna fucking suck in May.
So guys,
Oh,
get an out
Chucky
draft.
Lozano.
Yeah, exactly. All STFC
Chucky
all the time.
Lozano.
All STFC all day. I mean, we can change, we can adapt. We're humans. We can adapt. But it's coming because of just what you said, Chris. It's not just, and there's so many things that drive me crazy about the national conversation around this. It's not, oh, the Dodgers just do it better than you. It's not just, oh, you wish your owner could do it too. Because the system is built to tell the owner of the Twins, who gets a wild hair and decides to spend $300 million on his team, to fuck off and get back in line. That's what the system is built to do. It says, oh, you're going to be a small market team and aggressive? Okay, now you lose all these things. Dodgers don't lose all those things. Dodgers just spend money over the top of it. They have the ability just to pay through anything that comes their way from Major League Baseball. But for a team like San Diego, a team like Pittsburgh, a team like Florida, a team like Kansas City, we can go down the list.
All of them.
Of the teams outside of 5 or 6 teams, the system is built to say, stay in line, take your money from LA, take your money from New York, take your money from Chicago. So you stay in line, you stay down there, and you clap when they win. When they win, you cheer. and you better shut up about the rest. Now, don't get out of line. Don't go trying to win, but also stay down there so that we can blame you. When LA spends $400 million on a roster, we can blame you for your lack of activity. But also, by the way, if you get active, you lose all the money that you need to run your franchise, which LA gives you from the hundreds of millions more they get from local television than you get. So, it really is a, shut up, stay humble kind of thing, like you stay over there and we'll be okay. We're not going to be okay. There's going to be labor strife coming down the end. What do you say, guys? Let's cap it there, but say thanks to some great patrons for joining us along the way.
Yes. We had some awesome new patrons come in, especially after our group therapy show that Chris and I ran after the Roki stuff came down. We had a bunch of people jump in there. And this week it's continued. We have 4 new people. Sam H. Sixto, let's go. All right. Is it Sixto Sanchez in there? Who's to say? Jason C.
He's available. He's a free agent, I think.
I mean, talk about a fall. And finally, we have ADPT Jr.
Okay.
Yeah, assuming not a security system or the son of a security system, something, or perhaps a payroll company. Who's to say?
Who is?
Thank you very much for getting into the Discord, folks, or getting into the tub at least.
Absolutely.
I'd go to the Discord.
We'll be back next week with a February edition of Padres Hot Tub, 1 week closer to pitchers and catchers reporting.
With a special guest next week.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which one?
One of them.
Okay. Stay tuned.
Yeah, but this is called a teaser. Oh, by the way, Australia, I'm going to be in a commercial all up in you, so be ready for that.
What?
Yeah. It's happening.
Is it going to air during Australian Survivor?
Probably.
Australia Hot watching that next month.
Get ready. There you go. Oh, yeah. It'll definitely be airing during Australian Survivor. Yes. I will say yes.
Come on. Now I'm excited.
Chris, can I hear your best nar?
Nar? No. Oh, yeah. I got this. Because I was just hanging out with Rose Byrne, Raphie. Nar.
That's pretty good.
Nar.
I'm trying a little too hard. Yeah, that's how they say no.
Nar.
They say now.
Watch some Bluey. You'll hear lots of nar.
Yeah, no, what I've found from watching a lot of Australian Survivor and listening to is that any I is actually a U. So it's like, foy. Oh, it's going to be a foy. Let me tell you, it's going to be a foy. It's like, it's kind of O-y, but kind of U-y. But if it's an I, it's not an I. It's not a fight. It's a foy. Let me tell you, it's going to be a foy.
It's going to be a foy.
I came to fight. I'm going to fight. And with that, we say goodbye. Take care.
This is a knife.
For Chris and life moves on. Let me tell you. No more bad Australian accents. For Chris and Raphie, I'm Craig. Go Padres. Can we sign something? I don't know. Marinaccio? Marinara sauce? It's something.